Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the NCI Live. Tonight, as I guess you can all guess, I'm not Chris Erickson. My name's Dominique Fournier, and I will be guest hosting for tonight's edition of the NCI Live. And tonight, our topic is a recap of High River, but it's going to be more than a recap of High River. It'll be a recap of our Farmers Safe in Canada and a little bit of a review of the history of the NCI, its purpose, the things that it is able to bring into existence simply by being an initiative and a platform for truth. Before we get started, I would like to very much introduce my guests, Mr. Ted Kuntz, chair of the NCI, and then John Graff and Kari Simpson, board members, but also witnesses for at least one, in one case, two of our hearings. So Ted, would you please just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what the NCI is and why you decided to become a part of the NCI?
Well, the NCI began actually in the summer of 2022. It's when a group of 11 of us came together. Kari Simpson and I were two of those 11. And we began to have conversations about the government's response to COVID. We believe that many of their measures were violations of our fundamental rights and freedoms. We felt like it was time, enough time had passed that there needed to be a review of those measures. And we also lack confidence that government can effectively review their own behavior. And so the conversation was about, is there something that citizens can create that would allow for that kind of investigation, that level of accountability? And so the vision of the NCI was created. The original vision was to go across Canada in 2023, 8 cities, 3 days in each city, so 24 days of hearings. And that was a tremendous success and tremendous conversation. We began slowly because it was really an innovative idea. We started off with absolutely no money, no social media accounts, no emails, nothing. And it just blossomed as it crossed the country. And by the time we got to Vancouver and then returned to Ottawa, we knew that we had something that was important, that was effective, and that was could make a contribution to the quality of life in Canada. So the decision was made to continue the conversation, and we looked for the next important conversation that we thought Canadians wanted to have. And there was compelling testimony during the COVID hearings of the harm to our children, the masking, the removal from schools, the lockdowns, being relegated to learning online. And so that then inspired, I think, we had 15 days of hearings on the question, are children safe in Canada?
Yeah.
And so that's how it began. And for me, you asked why I was involved.
Yes, I did.
I think that there's many conversations that are not being had with the public, that there's a level of censorship that I think most Canadians aren't aware of because they don't know what they don't know. And the NCI was able to be a platform for sharing information that was being either coerced, compelled, or withheld. And I think it's a critically important piece of a functioning democracy.
Well, thank you. Great response. And thank you for that little history. Very important to remember how this all started. Kari, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about Kari Simpson.
Kari Simpson. Well, Kari Simpson's very honored to be a part of this amazing Canadian initiative. And I agree with Ted. When we started out, I don't think we ever contemplated that we would be where we are today with so many people looking to the National Citizens Inquiry for good information, for the ability to find out and do their own research. And more importantly, Dominique, we find ourselves this amazing platform for truth to be told. And I don't know how many of our witnesses now have said, I've been waiting a long time to bring this information, or I've been waiting a long time to tell this story. And these are important stories that need not only to be told, but to be listened to and to be identified that there are some serious issues in Canada that need to be dealt with. But what really struck me, I think, at this last set of hearings was we are now this platform for world-renowned scientists to come and share in layman's terminology the amazing science, the amazing work, the amazing questions that they are asking that are not getting answered even by government. So it's just not for little people. We've been able to bring this new platform to the people and for our elected officials as well, where this conversation can happen and people, the citizens of Canada, can listen to these experts that were once and basically regulated, to science conferences or to hearing rooms with government. And now the people of Canada can see and hear and decide for themselves what is really transpiring in Canada. So from our original adventure to today, the National Citizens Inquiry, I think, is a growing influence, and probably in this day and age when public trust and confidence in government is so lacking, this is an opportunity for people to really have power in their voice and have that voice amplified. So I don't think when we started out, hey Ted, that we ever anticipated we would be where we are. But this is a very good thing that is happening for Canada and other places around the world that are contemplating starting their own national citizens inquiry as well. So we've literally been a real leader in this new way for government to receive information and for the people to transmit it, which I think is just a gift. It's a gift for all the way around. It's win-win as long as we're listened to and as long as government starts acting in accordance with what the truth is saying.
Well, and for as long as they're not, there are initiatives like these. And I've heard this said many times, that the National Citizens Inquiry was groundbreaking, and is groundbreaking, that there is no other inquiry like it. But there are those who would like to see similar things happening in their country, similar to the convoy. Canada started something incredible with the convoy, and it's now, again, Canadian citizens, not government, not organizations, but Canadian citizens started something with the convoy, and again now with the National Citizens Inquiry. So, John, how about you? What invited you into? Why did you join the National Citizens Inquiry? And you know what? I'm going to start the next round of question as well with why are farmers safe in Canada with you sitting in a tractor?
Well, before you get to him, though, Dominique, I just wanted to emphasize the groundbreaking and how apropos it is for this set of hearings, and the fact that John Graff is sitting literally breaking ground as we're speaking.
Yeah. Well, I guess I've been around the NCI from the beginning, although not part of the 11. I was more involved in the operations of setting up the hearings and holding hearings when it came across the first time across Canada. But I guess I seen and was in conversation with a lot of the original people, encouraging the establishment of some type of institution that was outside government, because we can see through the last, count how many years, 10 years, 5 years, at least we can see that number of years where government has proven that it cannot investigate itself. And we need a citizen-driven, citizen-led, citizen-funded, independent inquiry into government and related institutions to defend people's rights and freedoms. Government has proven time and again that it cannot do that. We like as people to say that the government's purpose is to uphold our freedoms and our rights. But reality is that work is contrary to the best interests of government. They they benefit by the expansion of their control over people and their actions that go against the people, and we need an independent voice and an independent group to be able to stand up. The people who can uphold their rights are the people. That's the people's job, is to protect their own rights, not government. Yes. And so this is the conduit and the venue and the institution that is standing up to allow people that opportunity. And I vigorously defend that, whether I'm in my tractor or behind the computer or at a hearing. We need to have a venue. Everyone needs to have a voice and a venue that they can speak truth to power. That's the NCI.
Excellent. Very well said, John. Thank you. And thank you all for joining tonight and to share a little bit with the public the culmination, I guess, of not just the High River hearings, but both sets of hearings in Kelowna and in High River. And we'll focus primarily on High River. But I do think it's important to remind our viewers that this is one of two sets of hearings on our Farmers Safe in Canada. And there was a reason why we ended up going down this path as an organization, as an initiative of asking that question. So I'm going to put it to you, John, again, and then I'd like to hear from Ted and Kari. Why that question? Why was that important? Why did we need to bring that to the awareness of the public?
Well, I think that several of us on the board, primarily Kari, myself, and Scarlett, all have a rural tie and farming, of various aspects of farming and rural life, and we recognized the challenges that we and our neighbors were having, and at the same time that we were discussing the next topic, we realized that the topic that we're working on is bigger than a 2-month prep time, and we needed something to fill that gap. The ostrich situation was dominating the news, alternative media, and the CFIA was just launching new regulations that had the agricultural and livestock world up in arms, and it was the perfect time for the people to be able to speak again and bring their concerns up. So I think that's why we moved forward with this.
Kari, what would you have to add to that?
Well, I agree with John in our contemplations, because we get so many requests to, could you please hold a hearing into this? Could you investigate into that? And so the challenge for the board is wading through the public interest requests. And one of the things we were observing, as John said, over the ostrich situation, was how little information people had or knew about how regulations affecting farmers, in this case the ostriches, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, how it all works, because it's this huge octopus of ministries and bureaucracies, committees. And so this was a real opportunity for us to, number one, serve the public again in providing this educational opportunity, but also to look really closely at what was happening. And, I think we find through all of these hearings that even though we are intimately engaged, as John said, in farming and rural life, and, going back to our Children Safe in Canada, I mean, 3 decades of work protecting children, and the information that I even learned, surprises me. And again, like, who knew that the regulations had been changed, that you couldn't slaughter an animal 21 days out from slaughter down to 7 days? Like, that's information I think Canadians not only should know, but have a right to know, Dominique. And so, we talked about all the amazing things, the NCI. The one thing that wasn't mentioned is that the NCI is a record a repository of information. You can go to the website, you can look at what happened during our Children's Safe in Canada. You can look at what the testimony was. You'll be able to, within a few days, go to the website and look at the testimonies of these amazing people. You can go and already watch the live streams. You get to watch everybody at that case. But, here's a repository of truth, something that can't be rewritten, that can't be put through the spin masters, an accurate record of what was happening in the day at the time, what experts were seeing, what Canadians were experiencing. I don't know where else you can get that kind of information, but that, I think, is another gift that we give in this day where people are tweaking the truth and rewriting history. There will be an accurate record of the people, what they said, and what was really going on. And, kids going to school, if they need to write a report, they can hit the National Citizens Inquiry and listen to the experts and not just go along with the current line, right? Find out what's really going on. So again, when we came to this subject matter, and I think if people listen to the testimonies, we see this convergence of issues, our food supply, our farmer safe. If we're not taking care of our farmers, who's taking care of our food supply? Do we have a right to food labeling? Do we actually know what's going on? Is the CFIA, with all its power, actually protecting the people? And there was some shocking testimony on that front of not even the CFI being asked to go and test meat in stores to see what kind of residual vaccine is still present in there, if any, and they refused to do it. As I said, the testimony, you don't need to be a farmer. All you need to do is be a human being who needs food for sustenance to be interested in all the testimonies that we heard. It was not only fascinating, it was shocking, it was concerning, and I think that we have found that we have a lot of work to do in this nation to make sure that food supplies, food security, our farms, our farmers are all working together for the benefit of all Canadians.
Yeah, agreed. Ted, you and I are kind of the odd people out here because we don't have farms. I don't know if we even have critters, but one of the things that I remember you commenting on more than once was the fact that once we started these hearings, you were astounded at the things you did not realize was going on behind the scenes. Talk a little bit about that and about the importance of the NCI and these hearings with regard to what people don't know.
Right. Yeah, Dominic, I was actually one of the board members that I was not a big fan of conducting hearings on farming and food in Canada. I wasn't aware of the challenges. I certainly was aware of the ostrich situation, and I thought that was quite egregious how those almost 400 ostriches were culled purely on suspicion as opposed to evidence of infection. And but there was we got outvoted on the board by the farmers, and so we held the first set of hearings in Kelowna. And I have to say that I came away from that first set of hearings shocked and disturbed by what I heard from the challenges that our farmers are facing in Canada that really put our food security at risk in this country. But even more disturbing was the what I would suggest is the ingredients of our food supply that are dangerous to us, and the lack of what I believe is proper oversight by the organizations that we trust to keep us safe. Health Canada, Canadian Food and Inspection Agency, and others. And discover that there are, what did we hear in High River, that there are 10,000 ingredients in our food supply that are generally regarded as safe with no evidence to support that claim. Mm-hmm. You start to discover that the oversight that we expect seems to be very short on actually food safety, and it seems to be pretty strong on treating farmers like they're criminals that have to be monitored 24 hours a day. And so after the testimony in Kelowna, we knew we needed to have further conversations, and so we planned for the 3 days in High River. And I would suggest that we could probably have another half dozen days of inquiry into the food and farming situation. But what we have done is we have alerted Canadians, I think, to some of the major concerns. We've identified some of the experts who can provide us with information on this. And the other thing that's special about the National Citizens Inquiry is the testimony is given in a quasi-judicial setting under oath in front of commissioners who have the responsibility then to take that testimony, summarize it so that it's available for Canadians, and then provide recommendations. And so this is not just meant to be an exercise in identifying all that's wrong. It's also meant to be an exercise in what do we need to do better. But I came away, particularly from the High River hearings, concerned about the quality of our food, the safety of our food, and the nutritional value of our food. I think one of the figures that was given, I think by David Stephan, is that the nutritional value of food today is about 10% of what it was in the 1950s. And then what's linked to that is the increase in chronic disease and psychological and emotional issues that both humans and animals have as a result of that poor nutrition. And it made me wonder how much of our health crisis that we have, not only in Canada but globally, is a consequence of poor nutrition, as opposed to the scaremongering of infectious diseases. So it was very enlightening.
And Ted,
Truly
sorry,
astounding.
Dominique. Yeah, sorry, Dominique. The other issue that we found in this that we haven't talked about is, while we had this amazing lineup of courageous witnesses, we also saw a real dark side in that there were so many people who wanted to speak, to testify, but out of fear of government retribution. Dominique, I mean, this is Canada. They told us the stories, but they did not want to present them themselves publicly. And how we address that subject, and this is another challenge for this organization, is as we hold these hearings, all these new issues arise that we are being looked to find solutions. And does that mean we need whistleblower protection across Canada in a meaningful way? We don't know. We're going to be discussing that. But that was another aspect, I think, that we found so troubling, is not only the information that was given, as Ted said, and, behavioral problems in children and all the rest of it, but this other silent undercurrent of Canadians, hardworking Canadians, farmers, who had information and testimony to give that was important for Canadians to hear, but out of and this isn't a manufactured or a fear that's just overzealously playing in their minds. This is real. These government
It
agencies have
is.
power. They have
They do.
power.
Yeah, it is real. And that's the beauty of what we do here at the NCI, is that we provide an opportunity where we hope and we present it as a safe environment, truly safe, not the way we understand safe sometimes today culturally, but truly safe, where people can come, present their experience, their direct experience, present the facts, be open to questions, and then have it recorded in perpetuity where anyone can access it. So I think it was John who was saying, it is not the role, and it's never been the role of the National Citizens Inquiry to necessarily do anything with this information other than to ensure the public knows it's there, and then inspire them, I hope, and encourage them, take this information. We're giving them the tools necessary to retake their ability to have a say in how they live their lives, and in this case, what they eat and what they shouldn't be eating. They have access to this information, and they can take this information to their members of parliament, their MLAs, their municipal representatives, and then organizational heads, members of the CFIA, and talk to them about what's going on. So now with that in mind, I want to touch on something really quickly, and then I'd like to talk about something maybe a little bit more uplifting. How many members of parliament, between members of parliament, MLAs, and municipal representatives were invited? How many, guesstimate, were invited, and how many came and joined us to hear this incredible evidence being offered by their constituents? Ted, you want to take that one?
Well, and that was one of the questions that one of the commissioners, Vincent Gerses, asked. He asked to be on the public record, how many members of parliament, how many provincial legislators, and how many media, both independent and mainstream, were invited to the NCI hearings. And the number was just about 1,000. I think it was 980 or something between the elected representatives and media. And John, we had what, one individual that showed up? Have I got that right? Or
yeah, we had one local politician show up and take in a few hours, and I think we had one media person. But you have to give the media maybe a little bit of a pass, because they can watch and report from the live stream as well. But the elected officials have a responsibility to be there, not just to listen, but also to report. And we need to hear from them on what their bureaucrats and their deputies are doing in these instances, and they've been astoundingly silent.
Astoundingly silent. And just kind of give you an idea, many moons ago, I worked for several different elected representatives. And when things like this took place back in the day, one of us got sent. If they couldn't go in person, they would send a member of their staff to go sit, listen, take notes, and bring that information back to them. Not even that. Not even a staffer joined us.
Well, I have some breaking news, you guys. So I've been in a room. I've been in a room recently where there was at least 12 politicians who came up to me and aired their dirty little secret. And guess what it was? I love the hearings, Kari. I watch them, but I can't go to them, but I do love them. And what you guys do is so good. So they just haven't come out of the closet yet, you guys, that they are NCIers, right? But give us time. But I did have a good several giggles over this, and I was a bit shocked and surprised at it, because it was so taboo to let anybody else know. But there you go. So
well,
it was amusing. I said, be brief. You can turn it on in your office, you know.
maybe that means that, you know, the next round of hearings, some of them might actually step out of the closet and, you know, incognito. Who knows?
Well, I was going to say, I think we should contact the pubs in town and have them put it on their TV screens while people are quaffing their beers and see what kind of
idea.
I think that's a great idea, Ted. Well, we should put that to our ambassador program. I'm sure they'll be happy to take that one on.
So before we get in, and you know, again, this conversation isn't about rehashing or repeating the testimony. We're inviting everyone to go to our Rumble channel. For now, we will have every individual testimony posted on our website, but for now, go to Rumble and watch the hearings. Start with just a couple. Jump right into the middle and see if you don't actually find yourself unable to stop watching. These are real people who have invested countless hours in research, trying to understand what's going on with our food, and in day-to-day lives, caring for animals, caring for their crops. They are talking about real experiences, and I promise you, it will grab your heart. So much so that we actually showed a really short clip of one of our witnesses, Jason Smith, and the number of people who've engaged with that clip just stunned me. And the majority extremely positive and supportive. And those who questioned what he had gone through, and I'll give you a teaser, he had 550 deer that he himself and his family had to kill because the government mandated it. Now, a handful of people had some rather unkind remarks, but most people were just stunned. And again, we invite you, listen to the entire testimony, understand the context. And he's not alone. And that's the tragic thing. He is one amongst many.
And Dominic, the punchline for that farmer was that none of the animals tested positive. And
Yep.
so he lost his entire herd based upon suspicion and the actions of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
Yep.
That was very difficult testimony to hear.
Yes.
Talk about the kind of numbers of views and comments on social media for just that little clip.
Just that little clip, and just on Facebook alone, there was well over 150,000 views and close to 350 comments, right? And that's not counting the number of shares. And on our X platform, there was, the last I checked, well over 50,000 views. So it is engaging. People are curious because it's touching their heart. These are real human beings. We're not making up stories. We are providing a platform for real human beings to tell their story, in some cases for the first time publicly, right? We had Lonnie Avril, a powerful speaker. He was our first witness who testified. And afterwards, he said, thank you on the stand. He sent us an email to thank us, but he looked me in the eye and he said, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to tell my story. This is important. People need to hear it. And John, you said the exact same thing. People need to hear these stories.
Yeah.
Our witnesses are, and I'll let you finish that sentence, John.
Well, they're heroes, is one thing. But they're also not alone. You know, Jason with being forced to kill his deer. Like you imagine Bambi and the little fawns. He had a whole truckload of fawns that he had to pick up after he shot them and throw them in the back of the pickup because the CFI government forced him to kill them when they weren't even ill. There was no sickness.
Well, John, also make sure, Justin, there's a live test that was available that he was willing to pay for. And they said, no, you have to kill them.
Yeah. And people think about the whole uproar about the ostriches. The same thing was happening with the ostriches. They just refused to say no or to say yes and go out and do it.
Exactly.
And now, because they refused to kill them, the government has refused to compensate them. The government sent in, since the last we started this, the government sent in our sharpshooters. They were poor sharpshooters. They I think it was ratio was like 3-to-1 bullets to ostrich, but sent in sharpshooters to kill them, and now not clean up the mess, and 2, not provide compensation. And you're dealing with this, like we listen on to these testimonies, and we had one couple, a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law whose farm had been depopulated last year. They testified, and they said these people are terrible to deal with. They're inept. Like they talk about those, and they had over a year of trying to get compensation for their over 2,000 cattle that were depopulated. And these people and these stories are not one-offs. They're not unique or anything like that. Right now, there are over 13 flocks of chickens currently under CFIA quarantine, with almost 17.5 million birds that are going to be killed. More than likely, 99% chance they're going to be all killed. 17.5 million birds on suspicion.
Yeah.
There are, I think that was 12 flocks. There are 13 herds of cattle right now that are being quarantined. We don't know what the outcome will be. Some might might be released from quarantine, but while they're in quarantine, these farmers are forced to pay for the care and upkeep of animals that the government is holding. They can't sell them, they can't move them, they can't put them to new pasture. They just have to go dig into their pockets and try to find feed.
Yeah.
And like it's expensive. It's extremely expensive. There's like a little over 2,000, 2,800, something like that, animals in quarantine of cattle at $300-400 a month. These farmers are so. You think about what these people are going through on suspicion, and I really like when Ted talks. He opened up here talking about the 10,000 different ingredients and things that are generally regarded as safe. Well, the testimony we heard on that, you step back and you shake your head because you realize the corporate collusion that's taking place with the government to allow buddies and compatriots to make a bundle of money off of the Canadian population, but the farmer is being regulated into oblivion, so that these other ingredients can take their place. It's astounding. It's astounding.
It is. And when you think about kind of how do you balance that? Because I don't think anybody, including the farmers, are saying there doesn't need to be some kind of safeguard to ensure that, people who are not good stewards of the land or of their animals don't end up hurting other people by putting on the market food that is dangerous. So you think about that and okay, well, that seems reasonable, right? But where is the balance? Because on the one hand, we hear these horrific stories, and I really encourage people, please go and watch all of the hearings. There's nothing like hearing firsthand from not only the people who've been through this, but the expert explaining, like Nicholas Hushler, when he talked about the testing, right? Why isn't some of this stuff that's out in the supermarket safe? Why isn't that being tested? When David Speaker talked about, the genetic, how did he put it, please, the milk.
Synthetic.
So the synthetic milk, right? And that how it's deemed safe. So safe that it doesn't even have to be labeled synthetic. But when he and other scientists began to do research into it, they discovered, well, wait a minute, we don't even understand what some of these proteins are and what they're going to do to the human body. So
these proteins they discovered some of these proteins that the government overlooked have never been discovered by science in the existence of the world.
Yeah. So you wonder, well, how do we know that's safe? So again, I really encourage everyone, please go to listen to our hearings and decide for yourself what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. We all came away with some pretty strong perspectives and points of view, for sure. You can't not. And so I think it does give people something important to think about, because this is what is supposed to sustain us, or, as one of our witnesses cautioned, could be slowly killing us. We need to be aware of that, as hard as it is to think about. So we could talk about the hearings and the testimonies and the knowledge that you can glean from that for hours. But I want to move into something that I think was, and I think you'll all agree, was truly incredible about this experience. And that is the combination of the witnesses, our commissioners, and everybody involved who put this together, the people who came to watch the hearings, who decided to come in person, and the volunteers. And what that created, because we were all together in the same building during the testimony, but many or most of us stayed to have a meal together at the end. And what that produced was nothing short of spectacular. Having an opportunity to interact with the witnesses, to get to know a little bit more about them. But there's something amazing that's going on behind the scenes of the NCI that I think is just as important as the witnesses. I'd like to hear from all of you what your thoughts are on that. Kari, let's listen to the lady first.
Well, you know, Dominique, and again, I think this is something we didn't anticipate, or even I don't think there's a radar that's been created that could have put this one on the scenes. So, what's happened through the course and evolutionary process of the National Citizens Inquiry hearings is this community that has emerged, a community of our volunteers, a community within our commissioners and our lawyers and all the people who work together. And you know, it's been fascinating to watch this too, because there are volunteers, regardless of where we are across the country, show up on their own dime. They fly themselves, they drive themselves, and they come because they are so committed to making these hearings a success, and they want to be part of that. And then, of course, we have volunteers on the outside. So whether you can be in person or helping behind the scenes online with the social media and all the rest of it, there's this group of people now that's growing, the NCI community. And again, watching, number one, I think one of my favorite things is watching a new volunteer come into the hearing room. So people do not appreciate the scale of this production, and it is a production. The hearing room, we have this amazing AV team, Justin and Kara, and they just pull off miracles every hearing. It's just amazing. We have volunteers helping with the setup, but I think for a new volunteer who's just watched online the hearings, the scale or scope of the hearing room with the commissioner tables, the witness tables, where the lawyer conducts the hearings from, the audience, the media tables, the lights, camera, action kind of thing, is just that's like, I've heard this and go, wow, I didn't know it was like this, right? And of course, then we get people coming on off the street, because we do have these hearings live and we have audience room. And people end up just becoming part of the NCI family. How do I help? What do I do? How do I get more engaged in this? So there's so many aspects of the NCI hearings now. The volunteers, the ambassador programs, like if you watch the NCI lives, you'll hear all about the ambassador programs. But it's truly another phenomena that's attached to this that we never really anticipated, coming out of holding a bunch of hearings about what government was going to do. Who knew, right?
Yeah, when we first started off, as I said, it was meant to be a quasi-judicial process. And so there's a formality to it. We didn't allow people to clap at the end of testimony, because we wanted it to be like a courtroom. And then I don't even know how the first time of it happened is we decided to host a meal after the end of the day for volunteers and witnesses and the commissioners and those of us that were involved. And the richness of that experience, the conversations, the deepening of the relationships, we discovered there's something more important here than just testimony. And what I'm proud of is I believe that now when we conduct NCI hearings, we leave that community stronger and richer and more vibrant and more connected than they were before the hearings. And I think that's a critical piece of the mission of the NCI as well, as to strengthen community, and you see it happen. And so we're learning as we're going, and we're discovering that the experience of these hearings is more than just the testimony. It's been interesting.
What about you, John?
Yeah, it is an impactful thing. I like the way Ted says that we leave the community stronger from the experience that the volunteers and the public have. It's interesting that our kind of our motto or a word that we say is that truth matters. And when people come to the NCI, they come from a world where lies are being told, and they're living under this umbrella of lies that is just over top of everything. And when they come to the NCI and they see testimony that is tested, we have a facilitating lawyer who tests and makes that draws things out. We have commissioners who question the evidence and the testimony. And when you as the public come and sit and are exposed to truth, it knocks out those crutches that are supporting, and the props that are supporting lies in our communities. And when that happens in people's lives, you can't just let them be. They everything that they've been living and growing up and been told is part of the structure out there, it's just been wiped out by truth. And it requires the community to come back around, a community of truth seekers and truth lovers who are basing their future on that rather than the lies they've been told. And we have to be cognizant of that when people are sitting there and all of a sudden they're faced with truth, they need the community to be there with them, and we see that it has to work together.
Absolutely. And I'll add a little something else to that, because I do think there is something to be said about when you feel like you have become a part of a community, you're more likely to want to do something because you feel supported by that community. You're more likely to want to go, I'm going to pick up one of those reports and take it to my MP. Let's do that. Let's do that together. There is something about building community that gives people the strength to do the right thing. You don't do that when you feel alone. And so I do think that this has been an important component of the NCI that has kind of grown as part of, the NCI moving and organically changing. Like you said, Ted, it used to be this way for a reason, but we've seen a shift, and it wasn't a planned shift. It happened organically and naturally. And I think that's something important.
And it doesn't take away from it doesn't take away from the quasi-judicial component of it.
No,
it enhances it and helps to bring about a better understanding or a better ability to process the truth that the people hear while it's
accountability.
And
Yes,
and I know why we changed the clapping thing, because I kept clapping because I didn't realize we weren't supposed to. I don't get in the hearing room often, and somebody had finished a fantastic testimony. You could feel the whole place wanting to just explode in applause. And of course, I'm going, well, why isn't anybody else? And I got
you're the one who did that, Kari. Okay.
That's it. We change it.
Of course, the rabble rouser is the one that made that.
And I was trying to be good. Honestly, you guys, so we'll just change that rule, because the testimony that happens definitely deserves applause. It's amazing stuff that goes on there.
No, agreed.
And besides which, as Canadians, we need to not be quite so compliant anymore. We need to be a little bit more on the good rebel side, I think, and we'll be much better off.
Yeah,
so just
absolutely.
Good rebel.
Yeah, good rebel. So speaking of quasi-judicial and the record, Ted, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what is so important about the record, and something that's kind of emerged a little bit as we've been talking about this, why having a citizen-driven public record is so important.
Well, again, we're hearing information that is being withheld from the public. It's not available in our parliaments. It's not happening in our mainstream media. When we talked about the issue of our children safe in Canada, we're not getting information from our public health and doctors. And so it's becoming an important source of information. The other thing is that there, for many of these violations of our fundamental rights and freedoms, there needs to be some accountability. And right now, I would suggest that there's a culture in Canada that seems to think that Canadians will just move on and leave what happened behind. And I personally believe that unless there's accountability, this country no longer feels safe. It no longer feels like we're living in a law-abiding country where the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is the highest law of the land. And so what we are creating is a record, and that record is available there, and it may take 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, but it's there for when the time is ready for some accountability. And what I like is that we know that the government knows that we exist. And they're afraid to show up with a handful of exceptions. Our parliamentarians have not attended the NCI. We have gone out of our way to invite people like the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Health, and people that were responsible for the decisions that got made over the last many years, and they have refused to attend. But the evidence is there. And Dominique, it was one of the lines that you said that I really liked. You said those empty seats isn't a statement that the NCI isn't relevant. It's a statement how important the NCI is. And we are creating the record. Our motto is the truth matters. And what I just know that when you hear the truth, you're invigorated by it, you're inspired by it, you're energized by it, and you're now in a position to do something that you weren't able to do before because you didn't know.
Exactly. Well, we are getting close to the top of the hour. And so, before we kind of wrap things up, just a couple of quick comments on, we already talked about some of the challenges that we were faced going in. Invitations to public representatives we had hoped would attend, even just a handful. And other challenges, as you said, Kari, and I think Ted as well mentioned this, people who wanted to testify and then didn't, and what that tells us about our culture. And then we've talked a little bit about the positive sides of it, the sense of community. If you had to pick one thing that you thought went exceptionally well this time round, what would that be?
I can answer that really fast. And I think our lead counsel, Paul Jaffe, who's just amazing at what he does, pointed out the fact that when one of the doctors was testifying that she didn't take the fifth. That was a crucial moment.
That's right.
That was hilarious. Did he actually just say that? So no. The caliber of witnesses. The caliber of witnesses, the information that was transmitted, and the usability of that information, I think, is what struck me. I was just so thrilled to hear some of the testimony in a terminology that people, even from these world-renowned scientists, being brought to the NCI in a language of understanding for the people and its implications. And also the fact that there were also raised not only the issues but solutions, because I think it's one thing to explore the problems, expose the deceptions, give people a broader understanding of the truth, just depending on the situation. But at the end of the day, it's what are our recommendations going to be and what are our solutions? And I truly believe the information that was presented to our commissioners throughout this hearing every single day from almost every witness is something that can be solution driven in their recommendations. So, I mean, these commissioners don't just listen to this testimony and ask those hard questions. They look at what's transpiring in Canada and they make really good recommendations on what needs to be done or what can be done. And I think we are going to get just one heck of a good report on these hearings that will truly be not only usable, but applicable for our government officials. And, Dominique, you raised this issue about people using this reports. People have to understand that, this relationship we have with democracy can no longer be casual. It has to be one that is effective and actionable. And you have the ability to go to your MLA or MP or your town councillor, depending on the issue, and say, look, this is what's being discussed. What are you going to do about it? And, use the power of your vote with this information to say, my vote counts, and I want you to tell me what you're going to do. We are the people, they are our representatives. Give them something to represent. And I think the NCI reports, the information that's available, provides that kind of, research and information for people to be authoritative in directing their elected officials to action. This is your food, people. This is your health. This is your children and your grandchildren. We need to have more than a casual relationship with our democracy. We need to embrace it and drive it.
Thank you, Kari. John?
Well, I think that there's a couple things. Again, like Kari says, the caliber of witnesses and the discussions, both within the hearing, the testimony be given, and the discussions that are happening in the gallery or in the dining hall. It's of the caliber where world-renowned scientists who were supposed to only be there in person for one day changed their flight plans so that they could stay and just listen to the topics and what is going on, and those world-renowned scientists told me this has impacted them like nothing else.
Wow.
And
wow.
When you see that type of response from that caliber, you know what you're in. And speaking about some of the empty seats, we were 150 yards away from the federal opposition's agricultural critics office, and no one came down the 150 yards to sit in there.
No, sadly.
That speaks kind of volumes to that's the hope of in Canada is supposed to be our loyal opposition, right? That is supposed to be pushing back against all this, and it seems like everybody is just part of the problem. So the citizens need a voice like this, and I think that's the other thing. The people who were there, in the filled seats, you've seen the impact on them.
Yeah.
Walk past down the aisle, and they're reaching out to grab you and give a squeeze, just to say, we're still alive here. We still feel it. So those things are probably the big. There's lots of other things from the community that's built, but it's like nothing you've ever seen. And the one politician who had the courage to come and step in there, he was changed.
Wow.
And so we have over 400 hours of testimony total, and maybe 430 hours, something like that, of testimony and video that people can take place of. I just encourage them to have the courage to watch 2 or 3 of them at least.
Yeah, exactly. And Ted, what about you?
Well, my first choice as well would be the quality of witnesses that we had testify. When the NCI first began in 2023, a citizen-led hearing, it was an unknown concept. And so it was a challenge to attract the kind of quality of witnesses that would have been made a contribution. What a difference, a couple of years have made. Now we have international witnesses who are coming to us and saying, "Can I please testify at your hearing?" And every witness that testified in High River was A+. Like, we were so blessed. So I want to just underscore that. I would say one of the the takeaways for me is the beehive of activity that happens and the day before the hearings start and the evening that the hearings are over. Like this group of people is just like a beehive of worker bees that are assembling and disassembling. And what I noticed on the last day, it's 9:30 at night, we're all done, and we having to disassemble the stage and the curtains and all of the AV equipment and chairs, and people didn't want to leave. Like they just wanted to find something else to do. And it's like they didn't want it to end. Yeah. And it wasn't like a lot of places where, you want to get out as soon as the last person has spoken, you want to avoid traffic or something. They wanted to be there and take in every last minute of the NCI experience. And I just think that speaks volumes for what we've been able to create.
Absolutely. Well, before we end, let's each of you 30 to 60 seconds tops talk about what do we do now? Is this the end? Round of hearings done? We're all gonna, shut the doors and be done. What's next for the NCI? And I realize we can't get into details, but what would you like to tell the public about what's coming next and what you would like to see the public do to support the NCI?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that the NCI has an important role to play in the quality of life of Canada. And so there are actually many conversations that we've been asked to host. And I would suggest that one of the most critical ones is that we need to look at the rule of law in this country. And so, but there are others as well, but there are no shortage of conversations. And so we are, we've solicited feedback from the public. We have gotten that feedback, and now we are looking to say, okay, when and where. So where's the venue? Where's the dates? What are the witnesses that we need to bring to that? And it takes months to assemble a hearing. Like this is not something that happens in days or weeks. It happens in months. And but we are excited and energized and looking forward for the next conversation.
Thank you. Kari?
The requests we get, and I get stopped often as I attend different meetings for different organizations and those kinds of things. And I think one of the most important comments that came to me was from one of our donors who said, when I donate to the Citizens, National Citizens Inquiry, she said, I know my money's being used for good. And that is so important for me, not only to invest in this work, but to invest for the future for my children and my grandchildren. And I think that was a very powerful statement in a time when we have to, decide where we're going to put our resources and what we are going to support. So we're very thankful for all of the people who support this. The only reason we can pull these hearings off or even consider doing the next set of hearings is because we have this committed group of people who donate, and the donations come in from all across Canada and sometimes other places to our surprise. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who supports this work. Without you, whether you can give $10 or $10,000, we deeply, deeply appreciate you because you give us the tools to pull these hearings off. And you all know that we're getting asked now to look at issues that are provincially related and specific related. So we're looking at ways now to facilitate that. There's issues and conversations that need to happen in real time, ASAP, as opposed to us being able to plan sometimes like into 2027. So those talks and those challenges we are looking at when we as a board meet, which is every week. I think people have to understand too how dedicated the group of people who make this thing work. And I just deeply appreciate Ted and Dominique and John and Don and Scarlett. This group works hard to make these hearings happen. So I agree with Ted. I think one thing that starts coming to us as we hold these hearings is that we start looking at root causes of why are we having these problems? Why aren't the mechanisms in place in our country functioning and solving the problems? And the rule of law and law enforcement justice is an ongoing theme that keeps coming across all of our tables. So looking at 2027, what that looks like, we have the fall still that we're contemplating doing a few things with. Recognizing the heroes. John, you used the word hero, right? Like the gala that we had last year was so meaningful to so many people, and we were able to honor those voices of courage that would never have had recognition in an award ceremony in Canada. It just wasn't going. So lots on the go, lots to do, but I always say this, whatever our final decisions are, it will impact Canada in a way that helps and benefits every single Canadian. That we promise.
Thank you. And you, John, final word.
Well, I think that our Farmer Safe in Canada has been impactful in its topic. I know that the topics that are being discussed around the boardroom table each week right now, and the planning that's going in, will probably shake up a lot of Canada when they come forward. People need to stay tuned, get ready, be listening for where they're going to be held, and get tickets.
Yeah.
They need to come.
And hold on.
Yeah. And I want to just say a note of thanks to all of the volunteers that came out. We have phenomenally good volunteers all across Canada, and thank you for doing it. And Dominique, we have to keep this going because we have to keep you busy, and does a ton of stuff.
We got to keep her out of trouble, John. That's right.
Yeah, that's Canada's main goal at this point. Keep Dominique out of trouble.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the team that we have put together. I'm not sure I've ever had, there's been a couple boards, but this board is kind of special now. We have a team of people who are working toward not personal benefit, but for the benefit of Canadians, selflessly but working, and that's kind of special and a little different. I hope people understand that this is not a big corporate operation. This is people working to serve their neighbors and draw in all the citizens. So thank you to everybody and everybody that watches.
Thank you. Yeah, beautifully stated, all three of you. And I think I'd like to reiterate my gratitude to this amazing board because you all inspire all of us, right? What we do is only as good as the guidance and the leadership that kind of inspires us, and that's really important. And I think it's also important to highlight what all of you either stated or intimated. There's no personal gain here. This is not a big corporate paying job. There's no big giant multi-billion-dollar corporation moving this forward. This is each and every citizen who says, I'm going to give $5, I'm going to give $10, I'm going to donate because I believe that you are doing good with the money that I'm donating. And as Ted quite rightly said, the conversations aren't over. There are so many. And the more conversations we have, the more we realize that we need to continue having these conversations, because if not the NCI, then who? I don't know. So thank you all. Thank you to every single volunteer who's given time, effort, and heart to this, because that's what we see really at the end of the day is the heart of Canadians who get involved with the NCI, who come to the NCI. Every witness, to our commissioners, to our legal counsel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Please share this broadcast and go and watch the hearings and keep your eye open. If you want to know what's going to happen next, sign up for our newsletter. We'll keep you posted. Next week, we will have another NCI Live. We will be interviewing some of our witnesses as we go forward, leading into the next round of hearings. And we'll let you know what those will be and when they'll start. So thank you again. Have a great night. Remember, truth matters.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.